Imagine waking up each morning filled with knowing, filled with a sense of purpose and knowing that your work not only provides for your family, but also knowing that it also glorifies God and it impacts your community. And so picture a life where you have the freedom to spend the quality time with your loved ones, build legacy that lasts for generations, and break from cycles that have held your family back. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss, I'm going to show you, we're going to explore how with our aligning our business principles with God's vision, how it can transform our lives and the lives of those around us. And in fact, I'm gonna, I don't know if there's, yeah, it looks a little weird, strange. So, give me a second here. Yeah, that's fine. So, today, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how you can align in this business Bible talk. So it's a business Bible talk. It's gonna be short. I'm gonna show you though. It's gonna be impactful. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how we can align our business endeavors with God's vision for our lives, and by doing so, how we can escape the 9-to-5 grind, how we can spend more quality time with our loved ones, how by doing so we can build a lasting legacy instead of being that person that our grandkids will never talk about after we're gone, right? Being the one that they're going to be talking about for generations to come. And how our efforts can help family members who are in need, and so that we could also be a blessing to our church, our community, while finally we're changing generational cycles for the better. So I'm going to show you how, by aligning, again, instead of doing it your way, instead of doing it the way that most people think, how by doing it in alignment with God's principles, we'll be able to accomplish those things. And so let's just dive in, because like one of the key things that people always talk about they desire to do is to get out of the rat race. They want to leave that 9-to-5. And that might be you, may not be. Like there's a lot of people I know who just love what they do, right? But many of those same people, they just don't love the way they're doing it because they're stuck. And so in Proverbs 16:3, it says, commit your works to the Lord and your thoughts will be established. So when we seek God's guidance, when we seek God's guidance in our careers and the things that in our business ventures, we can break free of the monotony that is the daily grind. And we can find fulfillment in our work. Trusting God with our career, our path allows us to step into roles that are not only financially rewarding, but also spiritually fulfilling. And so Proverbs in Proverbs, it's telling us commit. Just commit our works to the Lord. So that's principle number one. And your thoughts will be established. Principle number two is quality time. Like that's one thing. How many of you desire to have more quality time with your loved ones? How many of you desire it because you just don't, you just feel like you're never around? I remember back in the day when I first was quote unquote living the dream, right? When I 20 some odd years ago, when I first started when I went full time into real estate, left corporate America, I was living my dream. 3 years after, 2, 3 years after leaving corporate America, I made my first $1 million a year. And I was quote unquote living the dream. And one thing that I like to say is that I was a great provider then, but I was a horrible husband and father. Why? Because I was never around. So spending that quality time, and then forward fast 7 years later, when we had the market crash of the financial market crash with mortgages, then the housing market crash, things slowed down significantly. Eventually, I had to shut the business down, and I became dad. Like I was there all the time. I was making lunches for my kids. I was taking them to school. I was going to school with them and reading books and being involved in their activities. Like I became dad. And so in Ephesians, so sometimes it takes those kinds of events to slow us down to appreciate what we have, right? Have you ever been there? Hopefully what we don't want is those kinds of events to be the things that have to slow us down. But the beautiful thing about business is you could align your business so that it does center, that it does work around, or it aligns with those principles, because those are God's principles. And what does it say in Ephesians 5:15-16? It says, see that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise as the wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. And basically it's telling us that prioritizing our families, like one of the applications of that is just how about prioritizing our families and spending quality time with them, how essential it is. And by creating businesses that allow flexibility, we can ensure that we are present for our loved ones, making the most of the time that we have together. A lot of times people think that when you have a business, it's all about the grind. It's all about the grind. And if it's all about the grind when you have a business, I'm gonna tell you that that grind is gonna get old. It's gonna get old, right? Because you're gonna get there at the end, and maybe you do accomplish everything you desire to accomplish. But when you look back, you don't have any relationships with anyone. You don't have a relationship with your husband, your wife, your kids, your grandkids. And that's not, that's none of that is like that's our first ministry. So it's important that we do that. And we all fall into that. Like I have to put myself in check all the time, pray about it all the time, because a business is a thing that provides, but it's also something that if it's something that you learn to love, it really begins to it's just what you do. It becomes part of who you are. And so the proper balance is important, and that's why God has an order to things. His order to things is what? His order is him first. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. The greatest commandment. And then our first ministry, our family. Right? So there's an order to things, and then everything comes after that. Right? And so the third principle, building legacy with your kids, right? And your family and your grandkids. So when we talk about building legacy, well, how many of us desire Like, have a vision that when we're gone, we won't be forgotten, right? We won't be forgotten after generation one and generation two because we've left something behind, right? And what I'm talking about leaving behind, there's a lot of things we have the ability to leave behind, but just simple things sometimes. Like, it's the simple things that matter. Were you there? What did you impress upon them? What does the Word of God tells us? The Word of God tells us, though, that as a father and as a parent, that our first responsibility, what is to bring our children up in the training and instruction of the Lord. So that legacy right there has to be the first and primary. However, in Proverbs 13:22, it says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of a sinner is stored up for the righteous. So building a business with long-term perspectives allows us to create a legacy that can benefit our children and our grandchildren. This legacy is not just financial, but it's also one of values, ethics, and of faith. And so when we start talking about having the type of business that leaves an inheritance, right? Where we are talking about, what does a father leave? The wealth that a father leaves is houses and gold, silver, right? It's money, right? It is money. And what does that money do? The money does allow us to buy back our time, because you got, like it or not, you have to have money to survive. You got to have money to put food on the table. You got to have money to have a roof over your head. You have to have money to be able to clothe yourself. You have to have money to be able to do things in life, right? You have to have money. And if we don't use our creativity in a business to serve people with the skills and the gifts that we have, then we're going to have to trade our time to go serve people with the gifts that we have in another way, in someone else's business. And that business, now we're actually trading our time for those dollars to put to be able to provide for our families. And in many cases, we're not doing that at a level that we're able to have as much time that we desire to truly build that legacy that we want, right? So the key to having your an abundance of cash, more than you actually need, is so that you can have the time, build the time to build that legacy, right? And so that's principle number 3. Number 4 is being a blessing to our church and community. And so in Matthew 5:16, it encourages us. It says, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So from a business perspective, our businesses can be a platform to bless the church and the community. Like, it once was a desire. I remember it was one of my desires that I would be the biggest tither in my church, right? Not because I was like, and it wasn't like I was going to go around telling people about it. I just desired to be the biggest tither in my church, right? To me, tithing is about faith. It is about faith. It's not necessarily about the most money you make, but that was also what I was attributing it to as well, right? So being the biggest tither in my church, I ain't gonna tell you if I accomplished it or not, but being the biggest tither in my church was something that I desired to do, because it was also a scorecard as to how successful I was able to steward my business to, right? And if you're tithing, then I knew the church that I was at, they were doing amazing things with that ministry all over the world. And so that was the thing that I desired to do. And so by using our resources and our influence, we can support the church initiatives and community projects reflecting God's love and generosity. So when you're tied to a great church, right, you may not be the one out there, although you should be, at like you got your ministry, your business, your life. Every time you wake up and step out the door, that's your ministry, right? So you're representing God from the time you open your eyes to the time you close them. And even then, after you close them, we still represent him, because we have these thoughts in our dreams too. So he inhabits us. The Holy Spirit inhabits us. So we are a representative. We are ambassadors for Christ. However, we can't do it all, right? But our money can work way harder than we can. So as the churches have initiatives to reach people all over the world, the way the Lord's doing it, our money allows them to be able to do that at a much greater level. So we do our part in more than one way. So being a blessing to our church and community, because who wants to be the person who just doesn't give, like doesn't help or can't? Nobody wants to do that, right? And then the last two are number 5, changing generational cycles. So changing generational cycles. Romans 12:2 urges us that do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And so breaking free, we all have these generational cycles, right? Where our families are in some sort of bondage. It might be mental bondage, where we have all these limiting beliefs. It might be financial bondage, where we're trading all of our time for dollars and not truly being able to spend the time that we desire to spend with our family, our kids, our grandkids, building that legacy, and where we also have the ability to build generational wealth, right? To break them out of that bondage. Now, I'm not saying anything is wrong with working, right? Because if you desire to work, if that's what you're called to do, then there's nothing wrong with that. However, some people, they work because they don't know of any other way. And that's where I say, to me, that's the thing that's sad, because God gives us these gifts. He gives us all these gifts. And he told us in Genesis 1, he said to be fruitful and multiply, to fill the earth and subdue it, and to have dominion over all these things. So as he created us in his own likeness, he gave us a seed of creativity, and he desires for us to use it. And many of us have just gotten lazy in our creativity, and instead of trusting in him, we're trusting in someone else that limits us. Now, you may have a great job where you're not being limited in that way. Your talents and your gifts are being shown, right? Are being used. And that's an amazing thing if you're doing that. However, if you're doing something that you don't love in the job that you're in, and you're doing it just to put some food on the table because you don't know how to use your own creativity, then that's the thing that's sad. And I would encourage you. It says again, that in Romans 12, again, do not be conformed, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Just change the way you think, right? Just know who you are and know the gifts and trust in those gifts that God's blessed you with. And then we'll move on to the last principle. The last principle is support the vision that God's given you for your life and your family. So God's given us all a vision, right? In some cases, you have that vision where you just can't even sleep at night thinking about that vision, right? And that vision for your life and for your family is just like boiling over inside of you. You have that, right? I know I do. And that's the thing that just keeps you. I was talking with one of my students yesterday, and I ran into, actually it was Diamond, I ran into an old video of when she first got enrolled in one of our programs. It was back in October of 2022. Now, Diamond and I, we just got back. I just took her on an all expense paid trip with a few of the other students to Jamaica with us. and she flew first class with me. Like we just had a great time. She stayed in the Airbnbs that we have there, and her Airbnb, because she picked up a couple out there. We stayed in resorts out there. We got a chance to experience a whole lot of things. And now she's also one of our I like to call our governors, right? She's one of our lead managers, one of the people who oversees a lot of the activities inside of our program with respect to the places that we operate all over the country. And she's overseeing what's happening in Sarasota. But we were talking yesterday, and I ran into that old video, and I was like, "Do you remember this day?" And she said, "Oh my gosh, I remember." And I played it, and it was talking about the reason why, like, she was doing this in the first place. And and I remember on that first day when I was watching, I had to stop her from talking. She just wouldn't stop talking. She was just welling up and overflowing with this vision. And her vision, like, it goes deep. But one of the key things is she has a desire to come alongside the school systems, the schools, the young men and the young boys and girls. I'm not gonna say men and women because they're young, the boys and girls, and support them in their journeys throughout middle school, junior high, high school with her business. She has the desire. She's a nurse, and now she's also a business owner. She has her own Airbnbs, right? She has her own passive income Airbnb. She also has her own Airbnb business where she not only growing her portfolio, but she oversees other things. Like, she puts on events, these kinds of things. But her desire is to be able to use that to support not just her family, but the kingdom, right? And the kids who otherwise, like, have so much potential, but that potential, seeing that potential, giving that potential even more of an opportunity to flourish because someone has come alongside of them during their journey, right? And allowing her resources to support them in the things and in their gifts that God's blessed them with. Right. And so we were talking about that, and I was saying, man, I remember that day, but how much do you still talk about that? Like, I remember we talked about it, I think, on the plane when we were traveling, but I don't hear you talking about that often. And what I shared with her was, don't forget. Like, don't forget that. Why? Because, like, that vision that God's given us, it's so much bigger than us. And we all have the journey that we're going to go through in life. And in that journey, it's going to, like, you see my hand going like this. Some of it's going to be up, some of it's going to be down. Some of it's going to be the mountain, some of it's going to be the valley. Some of it's going to be the mountain, some of it's going to be the valley. Some of the mountains are high, you way up there, and then sometimes the valleys are really low, you way down there. And when we're in those valleys, that's when it's time to remember those things, because it's those things that will speak to us when we're asking ourselves, can I go on? It's those things that will speak to us when we've fallen or stumbled, and it hurts, and wondering if we should go on. It's those things that are much bigger than us that when we hear a story from one of our brothers or sisters, or when God puts someone in our life or something in our life to encourage us, it's those stories, it's that vision that will ignite again us to get up, dust ourselves off, get back on the horse, and keep moving, right? Because the vision is so much bigger. And in most cases, it's not about us, right? When it's not about us and it's bigger than us, then a little stumble, a little fall, a big stumble, a big fall, it ain't gonna keep us down, right? So never forget that vision. And so Jeremiah 6, it says, it reassures us, for I know the thoughts I think towards you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you hope in the future. New King James Version. NIV also says, thoughts to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope in the future. Right? And so, three things I want to leave you with. Three things. First thing, commit your work to the Lord. Again, Proverbs 16:13, it says, commit your works to the Lord, ensuring that our plans are established in his will. Right? By seeking his guidance in our careers and in our business decisions, we can break free. We'll be able to break free from the daily grind and find true fulfillment and purpose in the thing that he's calling us to do. Number two, prioritize our family and our legacy. Building a business that allows us to spend time with our families and create a lasting legacy is a testament of faith. He says, again, he tells us, fill the earth and subdue it. If we're filling the earth with the things that we create, then subduing it means to trample or master, right? Not allowing it to trample you or master you. Right? And so when you understand that and you have things in their proper order, then your business is something that you're creating, and it's created to serve people in a way that honors God. But it also, if it's honoring God and you're a servant of the Lord, then you're also following his principles. What? Him first, family second, and then everything else follows. Right? And so it's going to be that. And so in Proverbs 13:22, again, it teaches us the importance of leaving an inheritance for our children's children. And then the third thing, be a blessing to others. Be a blessing to others. Let your business be a beacon of light in your community. Matthew 5:16 encourages us to let our light shine before others so that they may see the good works and glorify who? Glorify him. Right? And so use your influence. Use that influence and your resources to support and uplift the church, the community, breaking generational cycles, and building generational wealth. And by aligning our business goals with God's vision, we not only achieve personal success, not only will we have the greatest opportunity to achieve personal success, but we also create a positive impact that resonates through generations. So let's commit to walking this path, ensuring that our work glorifies God and blesses those around us. And so I'm going to wrap up with that. And hopefully it was helpful. If it was a blessing to you, subscribe to the channel. If it was a blessing to you, share it. If it was a blessing to you, comment. But most importantly, if it was a real blessing to you, most importantly, implement it. Implement it. So with that said, I'm going to see you in the next video. You got this. God bless you.